Hi Matthijs, Michael DiPasquale, fellow competitor for Canada's next great Prime Minister. I was looking through different entries and yours definitely caught my eye. And after watching it, definitely have a few questions for you, and I guess like to put forward those questions now. First off, we're looking at foreign aid right now, and your plans are to increase that foreign aid spending. I mean, you say yourself that you've seen poverty and bad conditions in Kenya firsthand, and that you really feel that we need to be contributing to helping Africa and helping that situation. And I can respect that. It's a very noble undertaking. But as I'm sure you're well aware, as I'm aware, Canada in itself cannot save all of Africa. We don't possess the resources. Even if we had spent 100% of our GDP on Africa, we can't save all of it. So, what are your plans? What are your realistic and rational goals? I mean, I've seen a lot of rhetoric, both in your initial publication and in your first video response. I've seen a lot of rhetoric in your text answers, but I've yet to see kind of any real concrete stated goal, a goal in the short term, a goal in the long term, that can really aim Canada's foreign aid budget to having something that all of us in Canada can step back and say, yep, we accomplished that. And that's important because, I mean, obviously, foreign aid and helping other nations is a long road and is a very long-term undertaking, but it's important that Canada sees little milestones to make sure that they're still behind the task and they still see that we're making progress. So what are your goals? What are your rational milestones? I'd definitely to see that there's been some thought in there, because with our resources, are you going to just say pick one particular country like Kenya? Are we going to divert all of our foreign aid budgets to Kenya only and hope to help them that way? Or are we going to say we're just going to pick one portion of the aid crisis and say, you know what, we're going to buy those $7 malaria bed nets for everybody in Africa, and that's all we're going to do with our foreign aid budget, because then we run out of resources. And second of all, are you going to increase the foreign aid budget? Are you going to decrease? Well, obviously not going to decrease, but if you're going to increase it, by how much? 2005, we spent $4 billion on foreign aid, with plans to double that amount by 2010-2011. That's $8 billion. How much more are you looking to go? Right? So those are the questions on foreign aid. I'd like to hear some real kind of definitive, concrete stances on that, instead of just kind of more rhetoric and how important it is. Because yeah, sure, it is important, but what are your goals? What are you going to do with our country? And next, and probably the bulk of my time and my question here, I'd like to put towards the Canadian Forces, because I think you're one of the only competitors out there that said you were going to openly increase spending on the Canadian Forces. And while that's a great undertaking, I mean, it's a very tough stance to take in Canada, especially with the way that our country kind of feels taboo about the military. You really only mentioned it briefly, both in your first video and then only in the last 30 seconds of your video response. So let's take a look at the military situation. They're in a big hole right now, and that hole has been brought on by decades upon decades of mistreatment by conservative and liberal governments alike. And it's going to take billions upon billions of dollars to pull them out of that hole. And I mean, let's take a look at the parts I've had experience with firsthand. I've worked at Canadian Forces Base Comox for the past 2 summers now, and I've seen both Air Force squadrons posted there. 442 Search and Rescue Squadron, a squadron that saves lives of Canadian citizens and non-citizens alike each year. I mean, these are men and women who go out in often terrible conditions for the sole intent of saving lives or recovering people from poor conditions. And they're flying 2 different types of aircraft, one of which is brand new and is having its share of teething problems, and the other one is fixed-wing aircraft, the Buffalo, that came from the 60s. I mean, those are old airplanes, and they're eventually going to need to be replaced, so we need money set aside for that, right? Let's look at the air squadron at Comox, 407 Maritime Patrol Squadron. They fly the CP-140 Aurora aircraft, and this aircraft has recently had its roles expanded. It's no longer only sub-hunting as it was originally designed. It now works with the Coast Guard in fisheries and oceans. It looks at ships that are doing illegal dumping and illegal spilling, and documents that for potential legal action. And it also does a number of kind of humanitarian missions for Canadian citizens. It's recently had sensor upgrades, so in the past months there was a very real threat here in the lower mainland of British Columbia that the Fraser River was going to flood. CP-140 Auroras from 407 Squadron were going up and down the Fraser River using their sophisticated sensors to map out the terrain by the river and try and decide how close that river was to flooding in certain areas and where there was the real threat. In addition, these aircraft fly maritime sovereignty patrols up north, looking for submarines, checking out our old bases up there, making sure that those old radar stations aren't polluting with anything that might have been left there. Looking for also foreign invaders that might be stepping on our soil, right? I mean, they offer a variety of missions, but these aircraft are old, and they're starting to face limitations because of their age. An example is these aircraft are no longer capable of making their top speed that the manufacturer said they would be able to do, simply because there's a very real threat now that if our aircraft push close towards their manufactured top speed, there could potentially be a catastrophic accident because of the wear and tear on their old airframes. So, I mean, this is just looking at 2 squadrons in BC here. What about the Sea Kings, right? The unofficial motto of Sea King pilots is that we fly tomorrow's mission with yesterday's aircraft. And it's very true, right? They need over 40 hours of maintenance for 1 hour flying. They're going to need to be replaced. And we're just talking about the Air Force right now. Let's look at the Army and Navy. I mean, the Army, for example, had a bunch of Leopard 1 tanks. The Liberal government, previous Liberal government, retired those tanks. They mothballed them. They sent them really to storage because they didn't think they were going to be needed again, ever. And here now we've deployed them to Afghanistan. We deployed several of them to Afghanistan. We had to wipe the dust off and ship them overseas, and now they're serving in Afghanistan with our men and women because they need them. And these tanks are old. They don't even have air conditioning to protect their crew from the hostile environments of just the Afghanistan climate. So, I mean, we're talking no small investment here. The entire armed forces needs to be dug out of a huge hole, and that's going to take billions upon billions of dollars. And are you prepared to go down that road? And you've said that you support that our troops need good training, good equipment. But that's one thing to say that, another thing to actually live up on it. So when you combine that with increasing foreign aid and the billions upon billions that are going to be needed to make our military a really usable force in the modern world, we're looking at no small investment. And one thing that one thing I really want to hear from you that we really haven't heard so far is numbers. Where are you getting this funding from? Because it is no small undertaking, and it's going to take a lot of resources. And obviously we have a nice big budgetary surplus right now, but the Conservatives are moving to cut back the GST again, and that's going to cause a lot of that surplus to disappear. And so are you going to increase the GST? Are you going to make a new foreign aid and military tax? Are you going to divert funding from other areas? Where are you going to get your money from? What are going to be your short-term and long-term realistic and achievable goals in foreign aid? And exactly what are you willing to do to help improve our military? Where are you going to focus in the military? There's 3 big questions there that I want to see that you've put kind of your homework into what you're saying, and that you have a big plan for our country. Because right now, the flowery rhetoric is nice, but if you're going to get my support, and I think if you're going to get the support of many Canadians, you really need to start looking at specifics and really show myself and the rest of Canada how exactly you're going to help move our country forward. So I appreciate you taking the time to look at my response. I'm sorry it became too long-winded, and I really await your reply, and hope you're able to address some concerns or questions. Anyways, take care, good luck, and wishing you the best. Cheers.